speak about climate solutions, algae isn't always the first thing that comes to mind. But for you, James Chang, founder of GEB Impact Technology, algae holds the key to healthier people and a healthier planet. So James, you're born and raised in Hong Kong, and your journey has spanned, wow, quite a wide variety of industries: semiconductors, alternative energy, biotech, and all of this is culminating in the founding of GEB Impact in 2013, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Mm-hmm.
And today, your company is really leading the way in pioneering the cultivation of microalgae for food. So that could be in supplements, also in skincare, and biopolymers, which you can explain later on, because I'm sure some of our listeners, this will be new to them. But it's really an inspiring story, I think, of how science and business and sustainability can all intersect and help ultimately to regenerate ecosystems, which is what we're all about. Trying to move into this regenerative state and thinking rather than the extractive situation where we're in today, where we take from nature, we make things and then we throw them away. So in this Future Bites member spotlight, we're going to be talking to you, James, about your vision for GEB Impact and how you see things going in terms of economies and planetary health. What role does microalgae play in reshaping that conversation? And really, how does that link to sustainable food systems? Because that's what we're all about at Future Green. So let's get started. But before we dive into the work that you're doing, maybe just tell us a little bit about how you started, James.
Okay. Well, the whole sequence of my career path is, when I look back at it, is very much connected. Reason is that I studied in the U.S. I got my undergrad degree from the U.S. In University of Washington. And then I joined semiconductor industry, starting from the very bottom and entry level. And eventually, towards the end of that part of my career path, I rose in ranks to the worldwide sales director for polysilicon, which is applied to the solar cells application, which is the alternative energy. Now, during that period of time, I realized that how technology has transformed our lives, and the need with facing the climate change of alternative energy being coming into as part of our energy resource. And while I was doing polysilicon, microalgae was part of that solution base, being that it is a biofuel source. So I was aware of that until I came back to Hong Kong. And I came back to Hong Kong because my father had a terminal cancer, and so I had to come back and pick up the family business. And at that time, my family business was in the textile industry rather than in the high-tech industry. Well, it was high-tech when my dad was doing it. So in the textile industry, it's kind of going away, not being economically viable in Hong Kong. So I asked myself, what can I do to make the company sustainable and move forward? And of course, microalgae came to mind, is that it is a sustainable resource for biofuel. So I knocked on doors of several universities like Baptist University and at that time Metropolitan University, and I asked some of the professors, what can I do with it? And their suggestion is that, hey, microalgae, other than being an alternative energy, can be a food supplement, a skincare solution. The reason being is that even though it's a single cell bioorganism, it's actually a single cell seaweed. It has a lot of treasure in it, meaning protein, meaning paramylon, being the lipids are oleic acid based. It's a monounsaturated fat. So the application is quite wide, and it kind of like the light bulb lit up, or that's the aha moment, meaning that, look, I was from the technical industry, technology is the key, and I always see that there are always disruptive technology coming up every day to shoot down the latest technology and business. So having all these big pillars for that is available for microalgae, I think that from the business perspective, it's very good, because when each of the different areas have different business cycles, and one is down, it doesn't mean that all four or three or four of them are in the valley of death kind of thinking. So I delve into it, knowing that microalgae, if it is popularized, it would become a commodity. So my first couple of years of development with my team is to develop a technology that when we cultivate it, we can mass and scale it. And so that way, when it comes to be popularized in the mass market, the pricing of a commodity item will go down. And I don't want to just compete on the pricing, but on the value proposition that we're giving them. So that's what we're doing. We, in the past couple of years, we managed to work with ITC, and we completed a project in terms of scaling of cultivation of the microalgae. Now, bear in mind, microalgae, there are a lot of strains, different strains, who carries a different...
On that point, James, just before we continue, can you, for the layman, which I think many people, dialing in to listen to this will be, can you define microalgae and why is it good for sustainability? Because we know that there is an abundance of seaweed where it comes from originally, but why is it sustainable, and how do you define microalgae for the layman, not in a scientific way, but for people who are just the everyday, looking for healthy, nutritious supplements?
Sure. Microalgae is actually at the bottom of our food chain. The shrimps, the fish chews up the microalgae. Is normally grown in either marine environment or clear water environment. And so it's at the bottom of the food chain. The fish eat it, and therefore it has all the elements, marine elements like fish oil and all that, nutritional elements for the fish. So microalgae propagates very quickly because it's a single cell. And if we look at our 101, biology 101, you will know that they split every time, and we can make it split maybe 4 times a day. So imagine if there's you have one single cell on hand, at the end of the day, you will have 4 or 8 or multiples of that. And we also know that microalgae, when they're propagating quickly, they go exponential. So it's a very, very productive and economically viable material. Now,
so it grows fast, and it's growing abundantly, and it is also absorbing carbon dioxide?
Correct. It propagates very fast. It grows abundantly, but I have to clarify that if it grows in the natural environment, it absorbs all the elements in the natural environment, but some of them are actually not healthy for humanity. And so when we cultivate it in a biomass, cultivate the biomass in a bioreactor, we control the elements that goes into the microalgae for food application. So that's the part of it. And the other part of it is that because the fish takes in the microalgae as a food source, therefore, when we look at the natural environment, the fish is contaminated. Most of the ocean marine elements are contaminated by microplastics. We all hear that. And there's also limitation in the South China Sea about limitation of when you can fish because of the population. And so with microalgae, with all that fundamental nutritional elements, we can actually push out the fish. So microalgae can be the disruptive technology to fish if we can use it wisely and properly in our food source.
So imagine then that you could also put it in fish feed for the farmed fish.
Definitely we can do that. And as a matter of fact, I've read articles about putting it into fish feed, and it actually minimizes the infection of fish. Like, for example, if the fish is in a contained environment, and if one of them are being infected by a virus, the yield, I'll use the word, the yield goes down. And if you feed the fish with microalgae, it increases their immune system and cuts down on the infection. And therefore, the fish farmer or the farm fish would have a better yield and healthier.
Okay, so a better yield, not the yield going down. The yield goes up, I think you meant to say. Yes.
That's what I meant
good.
to say.
Yeah, I think the immunity issue is important, because you see with fish farming today, the cramped conditions, because businesses are focused on how can they maximize their profit. And so there are some downsides to that. So this could be an interesting way to manage those fisheries more healthily.
Correct. That is the case. And what I wanted to say is that the cultivation technology is going up, is getting more and more advanced. And as a matter of fact, lately I've been thinking about using AI, because there are a number of parameters. There's only a number of parameters that control the growth and propagation of the microalgae, and that can be fed and machine taught and during for the cultivation of the microalgae.
Amazing. Where are your factories? Where are you based then?
Well, we do have a facility in Shangshui, Gamqinchun. Okay, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind, because in the past couple of years, we have set up, and while working with ITC, we have purchased bioreactors and advanced equipment. But in the years during COVID and during the economic downturn, we realized that we can cultivate microalgae, and we can even cultivate it in a large scale. First thing is that Hong Kong's cost is higher. That it is not cheap to manufacture in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
The second part is that before we really create a supply chain for the microalgae where we can sell it in bulk, we have to create the demand. Because without demand, the biomass will be sitting there in a warehouse, rotting away. And so we are actually pivoting a little bit in terms of, okay, we have the technology. Now we have to find a way to put the microalgae biomass into our food. One is by adding value proposition to staple food products. And even we see that the meat analog and the meat alternative meat analog market is not doing that well, actually.
Yeah, it sort of peaked a few years ago, didn't it? Like the impossible meats. Yeah,
indeed. And so I still have a lot of faith in the meat analog using the alternative protein, but the technology is not disruptive enough to cause a price parity between meat analog and the normal meat product that we get from the cow because of the supply chain. So let's talk
about, because we've talked about the environmental benefits, let's talk about the human health side of things. Why would somebody want to add this to their product line? Let's say you're a big foods manufacturer like Unilever, and they're always looking for ingredients to add to their, whether it's food to go or even more basic level, putting ingredients into pre-prepared foods like margarine and things like that. let's talk about the qualities of microalgae. I see that you've said it's a quality protein, you have omega-3s, vitamins, minerals, and it's also getting rid of some of those unwanted, the antioxidants. Yeah.
Right.
So
toxins.
The toxins, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about some of those benefits. How do we get that across? You're saying we need to increase demand. I have an 18-year-old son who's always talking about getting more protein in his diet. And how would you sell this? How do you make it attractive to people so that it's easy to add to diets, and it's also easy to understand in terms of benefits?
Okay, let's start with protein. Protein is not all equal. If you look at meat protein versus plant-based protein, what you do is to go to the fundamental building block of protein, the amino acid. There are 9 essential amino acids that our body doesn't produce. And this is how you differentiate good protein versus not so sufficient protein. Meaning, in the meat protein, there are a number of essential amino acids that is high. And therefore, when we intake that, it would be able to supplement our bone creation, our muscle creation, and also our well-being. A plant-based protein, yes, they all have the essential amino acids, but the quantity is much less than the meat protein. Therefore, a lot of times when we go vegan or plant-based, a lot of times we have to go take supplements to make up for the deficiency that we don't have from eating the meat diet. Okay, there are bad things about the meat diet. I understand that, steroids and all that stuff. But microalgae protein, we did a test on the protein that we produced, and it is comparable. The essential amino acid quantity is comparable, and there are actually some that are higher than the meat protein. And therefore, we are confident that this is the right alternative protein for humanity to consume. Okay, and otherwise, there are antioxidants in there. In the microalgae, there are a number of vitamins in there. We've counted, I think there are 50 different types of nutritional elements. And the euglena that we grow is the only microalgae that has beta-glucan. Beta-glucan is something that we have in the morning we have our cereal. That's where it is coming from, and it's good for the heart. If you go to the supermarket and get a pack of the oats cereal and look at the beta-glucan benefits, that's in there. So we're looking at different types of microalgae. There may be in the future cocktail of a combination of different types of microalgae in a biomass mix that would help benefit the humanity.
Yeah, so let's talk a bit more about how it's being used. You talked about food supplements. I understand that you're also working with tempeh, because the issue with protein, I'm not a dietitian or nutritionist, but I understand that it's that B12 that is lacking. So it's the combination of all the different foods you can get to increase the protein. So you're working with a tempeh business right now. How do you do that? How does working and collaborating, putting your product into tempeh, how does that help enrich our food?
Tempeh is another aha moment for me when I met with a friend in BNI, and we sat down, we start talking about it, and we all know that tempeh is a staple food for Indonesia. A lot of people take the tempeh for the protein that it has, and therefore it becomes their everyday, every meal element. Now, tempeh is high in protein, and it also has a high protein, high yeast protein element in there. Now, but when we add microalgae to a very novel or very humble food product, all of a sudden we add a lot of value add to the product, and therefore the population that takes in the tempeh can get a much better nutritional aspect in their food combination, and therefore I feel that it's a very good element for the UN mandate initiative of SDG.
Sustainable Development
Yeah,
Goals. Yeah.
right. Because that is something that with a very incremental increase in the cost, the tempeh has a significant amount of value to our daily diet and nutritional element. So that's one point. And tempeh is also a plant-based halal certified product. So therefore, we also go into the Muslim community or halal focused community, and imagine the population and the market size of that.
Yeah.
And therefore, I also noticed that we are the first in the world to do this. So this is a very exciting part of the application. And this is what I'm looking for, is that there is a ready market and it helps humanity to benefit from it. That's what
and potentially at scale as well, so that diversifying and not just sort of being Asia based and seeing where else you can go. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the future now that we understand the product. Where do you see these other opportunities? We're talking about halal. Is there anywhere else you can see your work growing in the next, say, 5 to 10 years, both geographically and sort of on the theme of protein?
In the near future, the key point is that we have to create a demand for the microalgae, because without a demand, the cost of manufacturing will not come down significantly. And therefore, getting into price parity, I'm going to use the word price parity with soya protein or oat protein, because we don't have the supply chain at this point, will be very difficult. So what we have to do is that if we can create the demand and catch on to the mass market with the microalgae, for example, the tempeh, therefore the demand will increase, and therefore the more and more enterprise will jump into the microalgae cultivation field, and the price will be more economical for the consumer. Okay. Now, with that, the supply chain is important. Because plant-based protein supply chain around the world is very significant, is very mature, and now we have to create that. I think one of the topic you mentioned earlier, in our conversation, is that can we decentralize or grow microalgae in different parts of the world? And the answer is yes. Actually, if you can grow it in South Asia countries, if you can grow it in Middle East countries, and help farmers transition into the technology development and into the technology, and they can grow mass amount of it to feed their population.
Yeah, local populations. Yeah, absolutely.
So decentralization is a key. And we don't need large areas of farmland, agricultural land, and we don't need to deforest anything.
Yeah, that's absolutely important. So what I like about this story is that it can be done economically without, having to get those costs. You can get the costs down if you can create local demand, and if you can increase interest in the topic, in the product. But you recently spoke at our event, the Young Conference this year, and you were speaking alongside a lady at DFI, and they were talking about their low carbon rice. Was that an opportunity to discuss how you could get this product into supermarkets? Because clearly, if you can put this into the mass market, it's one way to go. Hey, sorry for the interruption, but just in case you don't know who we are, I want to welcome you to the Future Green Future Bites podcast. I'm Heidi, and this is where sustainability meets real-world action in food. I'm the founder of Future Green, and I'm thrilled you're here. Before we dive into today's guest interview, I wanted to share more about what we do. We're not just consultants, we're change makers, and we partner with communities, local suppliers, and underrepresented groups to co-create tangible solutions in food service sustainability. Whether it's designing strategy sprints, so that's our flagship workshops, or auditing supply chains, training teams with actionable tools, our mission is rooted in inclusion, impact, and transformation. And so in this series of Future Bites, we bring those stories to life. We are sitting down with inspiring leaders from our community, like our past meetup speakers or local chefs, sustainability trainers, and social innovators, to unpack their journeys, their challenges, and ideas for a greener food future. So whether you're looking to source seasonally, reduce food waste, or just bring more equity into the supply chain through reimagining menus for climate, each episode promises hope, insight, and practical step forward. So before we dig into today's conversation further, please explore how Future Green can help you and partner with you in the food service industry so that we can bring sustainability from concept to kitchen. Now let's get back to our guest interview.
Well, I was reading, as a matter of fact, let me go to my cheat sheet. You're talking about life cycle analysis for the microalgae. And so this is something that is very important for microalgae cultivation, because one example is every ton of microalgae biomass that we produce actually mitigates 2 metric tons of carbon dioxide, greenhouse gas. And also the water that we use are significantly less than agricultural land. So as we go, I'm looking at the life cycle analysis, and the culinary oil, the Thrive algae culinary oil, actually has that done on their production facility. And I'm very proud to present that to the community on that.
Fantastic. Okay. Thanks, James. That was fun to talk to you about your microalgae product, and really dive deep into the benefits, and also not just for the environment, but also for human health as well. How do we get in touch with you? How can we learn more about what you're doing? If it's a business, a retailer or a manufacturer, what's the best way to get in touch?
Well, I can. I have a business number or WhatsApp number. They can call, or feel free to contact me over WhatsApp, over email, and I'm always available for a coffee chat on that.
Great, I love coffee chats. Yeah, we'll share your details in the show notes.
I'm going to say this. We just got the award from the Greater Bay Area. I don't know whether the audience will be able to see this. It's the Greater Bay Area ESG Sustainable Enterprise Award. And this is based on the product that we brought up into the council for evaluation. And it is the Thrive Culinary algae oil. And
amazing.
We're improving, and we're making more retail outlets available. We're making the oil available at more retail outlets.
Fantastic. I love that certificate. So yeah, those who are watching on YouTube will be able to see that. Otherwise, we can share a picture of it on our blog,
sure.
Which is another way to share
your story. I'll send you the picture.
Okay. Thanks, James. That was great.